It's
So,
just like, it's just like going to the prison, Dave. You never knew what you're gonna do.
Well, that's
until you
true.
got there, right?
That's true.
So just,
Never know what's gonna come up.
huh?
Never know what's gonna come up.
Yep.
And that's one thing I wanna bring up is, you know, as we get started, if there's anything that somebody wants to discuss or talk about, this would be a good morning for it. You know me, I always like questions. I always like to dig into things. But a lot of people are just shy to bring up their questions.
We did this one time. I did it. And
Yeah.
one of the little girls, I says, we'll just point to something in the scriptures. It was at the time of Noah.
Well, you know,
The giants.
yeah, oh, as we, you know, as teachers, you know, we know the scripture, be ready in season and out of season. And so, I don't like to just kinda, as John was talking about, just kinda throw the Bible open and point and then let's go there.
I'll ask a question.
Huh? Okay,
I'll ask a question.
sure.
What do you see in Revelation 20:1 through 6?
All right, Revelation chapter 21, 1 through 6.
21 through 6.
20.
20. 1 through 6.
Okay, John wanted to talk about stuff in Revelation too, I guess. But that's all right. I don't think it's this, but this will work. So I'm going to read from my scriptures. Chapter 20, verse 1 through 6. And I saw an angel coming down from heaven. Now this is John speaking here or writing here. Having the key of the abyss and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold of the dragon, the serpent of old, who is the devil, Hasatan, bound him for 1,000 years, and threw him into the abyss, and shut and sealed over him, so that he should not deceive the nations any longer until the 1,000 years were completed. After these things he must be released for a short time. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given to them. And the souls of those who had been beheaded because of the testimony of Yeshua, and because of the word of Yahweh, and those who had not worshipped the beast or his image, and not received the mark upon their forehead or upon their hand, and they came to life and reigned with Yeshua for 1,000 years. Now the rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were completed. Now this is the first resurrection. Blessed and holy is the one who has part in the first resurrection. Over these the second death has no power. However, they will be priests of Yahweh and of Mashiach, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. All right. We have several things that are here. First, the 1,000 years is mentioned twice in two different references. Okay, 1,000 years of Hasatan, the dragon, is thrown into the abyss and locked up. And then we also hear just what we read in verse 6. There are those who will rule and reign during this 1,000 years. And I believe the 1,000 years is the millennial kingdom. Okay, it's talking about the millennial kingdom. So there's something that happens at the beginning, and there's something that takes place at the end. So what's in between? What's those 1,000 years? Well, it doesn't give us that information here, but it does give us more information in verse 4 of what John saw as he was being given this vision. He saw thrones. Now, is it a throne like this one up here? Is it a throne that we kind of have, big and bulky and, strong arms and everything like that? Is it like that? Is it just a chair like this?
Sounds more like a judgment.
Is it a stool like this? Huh?
Well, it sounds more like a judgment seat of some sort.
Okay,
Lifted higher than who's ever out in front of them.
all right, elevated up, but like a judgment seat. So what's a judgment seat look like?
Well, I don't know, a throne. According to the scripture.
Okay, easy
Like
for
a
you to say.
king's throne.
A king's throne. Okay, what does a king's throne look like? Like so I said, I gave you a couple of
Usually
examples.
pretty massive,
Pretty massive.
decorated, well decorated.
Okay.
And it's known that it's his seat.
Okay.
So
And it's
if
for
that,
him
it-
only. Huh?
So it would be that, it could be the mercy seat that he sat on, that he took up there.
But
Okay.
it says they, doesn't it? They sat on them,
Yeah.
Yeah, cause it's,
and judgment was given to them.
isn't that, yeah.
I saw thrones.
Plural. Multitude, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah.
But who was sitting on them?
Ooh,
The ones that were resurrected. And the
More
first-
specifically. Let's read it again.
the souls of them who had been beheaded.
What's that?
The souls of them who had been beheaded?
Okay.
Well, that could be a lot of people,
Yep.
Well, it could be a lot of people.
or a lot of souls.
Yeah.
Well, just a common thread throughout Revelation, right, is the serpent is after those who have the testimony of the commandments of God, right? I mean, myself and Rebecca were kind of talking yesterday morning that you've got Judaism, you've got Christianity, and then you've got this group that falls in between, which I would say that we're kind of that group of people, right? Because Judaism has the commandments for the most part, aside from their traditions, but Christianity has Yeshua, Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
yet again plopping their traditions on top, and then there's us who are doing our best to discern, to discern and get these traditions out of our lives and just get down to the meat of the matter, which is getting down to the testimony of the commandments. I would say that those folks that are beheaded, like I said, for what that's worth, the opinion that would be those folks that are walking in the Torah and having the testimony of Yeshua. So,
Okay. Now, I don't know if that got recorded very well, but what Eric is bringing out, going back to verse 4, and it's very specific the way it is written, and it says, they have been beheaded because of their testimony of Yeshua and because of the word of Yahweh.
And they
Now,
didn't-
that goes, huh?
And they didn't receive the marks.
And they didn't receive the mark.
Sounds like a subgroup to me,
Okay.
and those, and like those people then, and those who, had not received the mark of the beast.
Right.
Worship idols,
Or worship idols, or, yeah.
no mark.
So to narrow it down, what is Revelation about, period? Just to, start off somewhere, very basic.
Last days.
The kingdom.
Okay, it's about revealing the word of Yah to his people, but also to those who, during that time, may want to read this and try to understand it. Okay? Now, this time period I put at, that it's talking about here, not the 1,000 years, but prior to the 1,000 years, is Jacob's trouble. Now, very little is really known about Jacob's trouble, because most people, books have been written, there's been so many sermons and so much stuff taught on this, they call it the Great Tribulation. But when you look at it from the prophets in the Tanakh, it's Jacob's trouble. So it's very specific. It's not a broadband type of thing. It's Jacob's trouble. So to me, these that it's talking about here that go through Jacob's trouble are the ones that it's talking about. Because when is the anti-Messiah, when is the beast going to be revealed?
Soon.
During Jacob's trouble. Okay? I mean, revealed not only to the children of Israel, but to the world. That's when the beast and you know, his false prophet, that's when he's going to be revealed. So we need to keep the time frame, you know, and how long Jacob's trouble is, I do not have a clue. But I do know that it's going to happen. I trust the word. I trust what the prophets and the Tanakh have talked about. I trust what Moses even talked about. But all of this has to come to a conclusion at some point. Yeshua came 2,000 years ago, over 2,000 years ago, looking for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. That has not been completed yet. The house of Israel and the house of Judah have not come back together yet. That has not been completed. That still has to take place. You know, you've heard me talk about this many times. But the time is going to come when they get into the land, and think about 1,000 years.
We did.
Talking this morning, you know, about when David wanted to build the temple, there were 480 years in the land of Canaan when David came along and he wanted to build a house for Yahweh. Now, how many of us can even think back, we were talking about memories earlier, can even think back, if you're younger, 20 years, 10 years, what were we doing?
Good night.
I mean, Eric, that's what you brought up. It's like, you know, what were we doing? What was taking place? And most of us are going to live an X amount of years, but we're not going to live 400 years.
No.
We're not going to live, you know, 1,000 years. Some of us may not even live through Jacob's trouble if we're around when that takes place. But even those that will be around at that time, not all of them are going to make it through. How many years were they in the wilderness where the old guard, so to speak, had to die off? 40 years. They didn't make it. They didn't see the promise. I believe at one time they whether it was in the beginning when they came out of Egypt, or whether, you know, after everything was taking place, that some of them did believe that they were going to make it into the land that was promised of, you know, milk and honey. But they didn't see it because of their unbelief before. Now I get back to what it says here, that they, you know, held the word of Yahweh, being his commandments. That's, I would, because in other parts of Revelation, and earlier in Revelation, I think 12:17 or something, it talks about those who kept the commandments of Yahweh and held to the testimony of Yeshua. See, here it's reversed. It's keeping the commandments or holding to the testimony of Yeshua and keeping the commandments. And so one of the commandments that if they would have done it would have violated the commandments of Yahweh, and that is taking on the worship of other gods. That is what's going to be the most difficult thing, I believe, in Jacob's trouble. Is the presentation of other gods is going to be put before them.
It's already out there.
Well, yeah, it's already out there, but I'm talking the magnitude is something we can't even think about. That's what I'm talking about.
There's right now things going out there that's, there are all these hundreds of gods out there.
Right.
Not just one God. And people are actually believing that.
But now, if a person like Moses showed up and said, "Follow me," see, that's something that, you know, I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll think about this. What would it be if a person like Moses came into this room and says, I have a word for you from the Most High.
Well, what if no, but what if somebody walked in and said they were Jesus?
He'd be a liar.
Same thing.
Huh? Well,
He'd be a liar.
first of all,
We would-
he wouldn't come in and call himself Jesus.
Right, he wouldn't.
Yeah, but there's people out there that if that happened.
That has happened,
they
yes.
would. They'd be, it's happened before. They,
Eric,
That's
I'll
why.
get to you, Ken. Eric.
That's why it's so essential, right, to be established in the foundation. Deuteronomy, I bring it up all the time,
Mhm.
Deuteronomy 13, right? That's a valuable tool that will help us identify that false prophet, that person that's trying to lead you away. You know, it's such a valuable tool to use.
Yeah, but if he, now, because I've presented this before, I've talked about this many times. The one who's gonna be leading them away comes out of this family called the children of Israel.
it's a great falling away.
And that's,
It's
that,
coming out of the house of Israel.
yeah,
That's,
there's gonna be a great falling away. Moses talks about it. But the beast and the Anti-Messiah are going to come out of the children of Israel. They're gonna be doing these things. They're gonna be, you know, he's gonna deceive many of us.
great falling.
And I put that in a grander number of people. They're gonna be deceived because of his words, because of his actions. He'll kind of suck them in, you know, to believe in him, and then he's going to turn. That's what we learn. All right? Ken, do you have,
Well, you diverted me, but.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Now my thought is, what if this Antichrist dude comes out of the seed of Abram, later known as Abraham? What if he comes from the flesh side of Abram,
Mhm.
Ishmael? The one that in Genesis is called a wild donkey of a man.
Right.
And that is his lineage, even unto this day.
True? Let me just add something
ahead.
that's a little more closer.
Sure.
What if he comes out of the lineage of Esau?
Oh, yeah.
See, that's even
that
closer.
possibility.
Yeah, Esau is closer than Ishmael really as a seed because he's actually part of Jacob, which was, and Ishmael, or Esau
Isaac, yeah.
was
Yeah.
Isaac. Esau was the founder of Islam.
Right.
It came out of Edom.
Came
It
out of-
came out of.
Not Ishmael, he came out of Esau.
Right, it came
That-
out of
that was-
Edom, which was where Esau's land.
According
Right.
to the Quran, Ishmael
Right.
was the one who started Islam.
That's what
That's
they,
directly
what-
from their book.
That's
And-
what they teach, but if you look at Muhammad was the founder of Islam, he was an Edomite, he was out of Esau.
Oh, okay.
And that's where am I right?
yeah, and I've talked with a couple of,
Well, we did that, remember when we
Yeah.
showed him up at
Yeah.
the prison we had a pretty good relationship with the Islamic imam. And he had his crew and they really fought, they took care of us when we were there, didn't they?
that might be something to go into if we have time today.
Yeah,
is
but
to-
anyway,
to
we went
discuss
through it
this.
with them and it does, we showed them and they went, ooh, wow, ooh, and they were, cause they know where Muhammad came from, they knew that he was an
Right.
Edomite, that he was.
He came from the area of Seir,
Okay.
and that's the southern part, that's where,
Edom was.
the
Where-
Edomites, that's
where'd
where
Ishmael come from?
Well,
Ishmael,
he went to Egypt,
yeah, he was,
His mother
you know where
was an
Gaza is?
Egyptian?
yeah.
Okay, the question is, you know, where did Ishmael come from? You know where Gaza is today? Just south,
That's right there.
west of that.
Mhm.
That's where his mother took him.
Right.
And that's where because they were in close proximity to Esau. And they, in close proximity to Abraham.
Got you.
And so, that's historical, I mean, that can be proven. And so, but that's why I believe that the beast and the Anti-Messiah are going to come out of the children of Israel. very likely it's from, the one can, you know, show his lineage from Abraham. He's got to have some proof in order to bring this deception in. But it's going to come to a point where then he's going to get people to start believing in him, raising him up, okay? And then they will take a mark. And the simpleness of the mark is kind of doing away with, now this is just me, doing away with Shabbat, doing away with Sabbath.
Cause that's
That's the only mark that Yahweh
put on his people.
put on his people. How that looks, I'm not real sure. I just sort of bring that out. So, there will be those that will follow that. But there will be those that will not. And I remember talking to a few people, especially men, that go, they're very, very worried about being beheaded, because it talks about this.
I'm ready.
Anyway. Well, not to make, you know, not to laugh at that, but, you know, it's because
Well-
you know where you're going.
I've been preparing for this for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And that's what we're to be doing. That's, I mean,
That's
Eric,
what-
John brings this up. We talk about this. We know the scripture. We know what to expect. We know what to look for. We may not have the story in totality, but we have enough of it to, you know, kind of read these words and through the spirit of wisdom come to some sort of understanding. And so those who are beheaded, those are the ones under the throne. Those are the ones that are under the table. Those are the ones that have gone through the great tribulation and they did not give in to the beast or the Anti-Messiah. And they were beheaded. Those are the ones, if we go a few chapters back, we will see they will ask, they will cry out to the Most High, how much longer
Do we have to
before,
wait?
yeah, before we, you know, our blood is avenged? What's the answer that they get?
Just a little longer.
Just a little longer. Because there's more things that have to happen.
Yep.
Oh, great. I mean, if you're around at that time and you get that sense within your inner being, there's a little more time that we have to go through this. Remember, this is a test for the children of Israel. The world is going to experience that, just like we're coming up on Passover. Why were the plagues sent upon Egypt? To destroy Egypt? No. To get the Egyptians see who Yahweh is? No. It was to get the children of Israel to understand who their Yahweh is. Go all the way back to Moses. Who shall I say sent me? Has anybody ever really thought about that? Why did he have to ask that?
He didn't know him.
Yeah. Who shall I say sent me?
You didn't know him, or there were, not to get him confused with these other ones.
The other gods, yeah, the other Elohims. But that, you know, that's going to be a question that's going to come up in Jacob's trouble. Is he or isn't he? Is he or isn't he? Now, that's a part of it. Verse 5. And unfortunately, the way it's read, there should be a break here, but I'm going to read it as I read it before. The rest of the dead did not come to life until the 1,000 years were completed. Now, the rest of that verse, this is the first resurrection, is pointing to what he was talking about before that. There's a first resurrection and there's a second resurrection.
Yeah, these people that talk about it, 1,000 years came out of that first resurrection. The ones that are in their 1,000 years, they had to be in the first resurrection.
Yes, yeah, that's what it's talking about. Those who are in the, not only them,
Any before them.
but the ones prior to that, like Abraham,
That's right.
Isaac, Jacob, Moses. I mean, I turned to this, I'm gonna go ahead and go there now, just for this, we'll go back to Revelation. But when I was sitting here before service, I went to 1 Corinthians, and Paul talking to them, 1 Corinthians 15. And, I just went down to verse 35. I didn't do this, but I you know, kind of, my eyeballs fell on verse 35. It says, but someone will say, how are the dead raised? And with what kind of body do they have? Now it goes on, I'll just kind of paraphrase here, it goes on and it talks about, well, they're gonna have, their flesh body is perishable. Their heavenly body is imperishable. All right? All flesh is not the same flesh, verse 39. There's one flesh of men, there's another of the beasts, there's another of the birds, and there is another flesh of the fish. There are also heavenly bodies and earthly bodies. On to verse 40. However, the glory of the heavenly is one, and the glory, that's in italicized in mine, of the earthly is another. Paul also in Romans says, flesh cannot inherit the kingdom of Yahweh. Flesh cannot inherit the kingdom of Yahweh. A few years ago, that's what I did one of my Sukkot teachings on. Was based around that verse. So, but I want to go up to verse 36 now. As Paul goes on, he says, you fool. Meaning, the way I read that is, you guys have no understanding of what's going on. You don't even know what you're reading. Unfortunately, the word fool here is one who misunderstands. That which you sow does not come to life unless it dies. That which you sow. Now, does that sound familiar? That somebody else spoke something very similar? Who spoke something very similar? Yeshua did when he was here. Seed goes into the ground, it must die before it can produce. We must go into the ground also. Just as we put Frances, saw her go into the ground on Wednesday. And I have to look at that as a seed planting. Same way with your dad. Same way anyone that gets buried, it's a seed planting.
Just makes me, me and Rebecca were talking about some various seeds, and there are some seeds where they actually have to be scuffed up, or they can do anything. It just makes me think like right this journey of life that we're on. You know, we by the time we're at the end, you know, we're bumped, bruised, and scarred.
Mhm.
So it's just cool that application that can translate from an actual seed to us.
Right. But just using the simpleness of it, as Eric was saying, you know, there's some seeds that have to be roughed up. There are some seeds that have to, you know, be manipulated to a degree.
How do you get them off of the dead plant?
Yeah, shake them out, yeah. But if we just kind of understand that, how many have done gardening in here? I think about every hand is going to go up to some degree. Now, all the seeds that you planted, did they come up?
No.
No. See, it's the same principle within the body going into the ground. Not all are going to be resurrected in the first resurrection. even those of the children of Israel. Okay? Now that's difficult to really grab onto. And so it goes down here, verse 42. So also is the resurrection of the dead. It is sown perishable, but it is raised imperishable. It is sown in dishonor, it is raised in glory. It is sown in weakness, it is raised in power. That's the first resurrection. That's what's going to take place. To go back to our Revelation account. I'm probably going a little bit further than what you were asking, Kim. But so, to finish off in verse 6 of Revelation, chapter 20, blessed and holy, or set apart, blessed and set apart, is the one who has a part in the first resurrection. Because over these, meaning over all the, the Jacob's trouble, the second death has no power. However, they will be priests of Yahweh and of Mashiach, and will reign with him for 1,000 years. So, that's my thoughts on the scripture you brought up. Very good. There's a lot more there too, but to keep it simple. Now, one of the things, well, we've got a few minutes left, I want to bring up because Eric, and Rebecca, I guess we're talking about approaching, family or friends or co-workers or whatever on how do we present, this walk? Is that pretty close to what you guys were? How do we present this walk? Well, some of you have heard John talk about this. Some of you have heard me talk about this. This is John Lockwood's first book, first publication. And I've read it a couple of times. He gave it to me just in draft form, and I went through it. I think, Martha, you've looked at it too. Some others have looked at it. Well, this, I don't know if this is the first copy off, but it's pretty close to it. And he gave this to me a week before last. And so, it's called The Beginning We Share. It's being produced by Amazon. So it's the type of thing, if you go up and order it, they'll print it off and cut it up and send it out to you. Well, in my first reading, I had some suggestions to John, but it's an easy read. And one of the things that, when I came into this walk, and some of you I know came into this walk, we were looking for material, printed material, that we could study, that we could read. And some of it was not understandable, because we didn't have the background. So, now that we've got the background, now we can go back and reread some of that stuff, and it makes sense to us. This is very basic. And he's written it for the purpose of witnessing to the Christians and to our Jewish brethren. All right? And if you'll permit me, I'd like to read the opening. Well, I think he calls it a foreword. I call it a preface. I'd like to read that for you. No, he does call it a preface. Why begin at the beginning? Did the Creator give us the Torah, the prophets, and the writings only? Or did he give us the apostolic writings as well? According to the Jewish reader, the Torah, also known as the writings of Moses, the prophets, and the writings are all that were given to us. Now, many Jewish readers diminish or even ignore the apostolic writings. Christians, on the other hand, often focus on the apostolic writings, not fully realizing how significant the Hebrew writings, especially the writings of Moses. Now, a few of the people over here a couple of weeks ago, they're all new to this. I wish I had this book to let them read. But one of the things when like Moses came up, he asked the question to the Pharisees when they were confronting him. He says, you all think you're from Abraham. But let me tell you, and I'm paraphrasing, let me tell you, Moses wrote of me. Moses wrote of me. So what I did, normally what I do, and I did it two Shabbats ago, I said, let's go to Genesis 1 and let's just see if Moses did write of Yeshua. And I showed it to them. A couple of them got it, one of them didn't. This is what John in this book is trying to, he's in simple language, easy to read. He's trying to get our brethren, our Christian brethren, to look at the writings of Moses. Going on. Both approaches contain truth. However, neither set of writings on their own captures the full extent of the scriptures cover to cover. Now consider this. The Torah was written by Moses, yet he did not actually witness any of the book of Genesis. The whole account of Genesis was dictated to him on Mount Sinai. The fact should cause us to pause. Genesis introduces us to Abraham, Noah, or to Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and the 12 tribes, none of which were known by Moses. This book is an invitation to do something surprisingly rare. Start where Scripture starts. Before there was Israel, there was humanity. Before there was law, there was purpose. Before covenant obligation, there was divine design. One story, not two. The Hebrew Scriptures lay the foundations of history, language, covenants, patterns, and expectations. The apostolic writings do not supersede the Hebrew Scriptures. Instead, they continue them. They speak in the language, covenants, patterns, and expectations already established. However, when those foundations are ignored or rushed, misunderstandings grow about Yah, about humanity, about Israel, and about what redemption even means. This book proceeds from a simple conviction. Scripture makes the most sense when it is read in order, in context, with patience, cover to cover. Not to argue, not to persuade, but to understand. Why image, likeness, and dominion matter? Modern discussions about faith often focus on belief systems, religious identity, moral rules, and historical disputes. However, Scripture begins somewhere deeper with what it means to be human. Genesis opens by defining who humanity represents, image. Who humanity is meant to resemble, likeness. And what humanity is entrusted to steward, dominion. These are not abstract ideas. They are the backbone of biblical history. Every covenant, command, exile, promise, and restoration assumes these original purpose. When those foundations are neglected and context is compromised, entire theologies end up built on misinterpretations, leading to incorrect conclusions. Adam, election, and God's way forward. One of the most challenging and least explored shifts in Scripture occurs quietly. Adam begets sons in his own image. That statement tells us more than we realize. There are two clear images from here on out: God's images and Adam's image. From that point forward, the Bible is not merely recording history, it is tracing how God works within history to preserve, refine, and restore what was lost. The emergence of the well-known phrase, "let my people go," is often just read over without pausing to understand the context. Context dictates that the phrase indicates two groups: my people and not my people. That requires us to dig deeper into topics like election, promise, and covenant. These are not arbitrary word terms. It is God's response to a broken transmission. Adam was chosen to exist by God. Noah was called to build an ark. Isaac was chosen rather than Ishmael. Jacob rather than Esau. Barren wombs are caused to bring forth life. These are patterns that must be acknowledged. Scripture consistently teaches the same lesson. Life that carries God's purposes originates from His Word, not human ability. This book acknowledges that without flattening it into slogans or removing its weight. For our Jewish readers, this book approaches Scripture with deep respect for the Hebrew text. The primacy of Torah, the seriousness of covenant responsibility, and the enduring calling of Israel. It does not ask Jewish readers to accept later interpretations. It asks only that Genesis be allowed to speak fully and patiently. Many familiar passages are revisited here, not to challenge tradition, but to slow the reader down and consider how consistently Scripture itself explains God's ways. So I invite the Jewish reader to consider the rest of the story. For Christian readers, this book gently challenges the habit of rushing through Hebrew writings or interpreting later writings without their original soil. Christian readers are invited to rediscover how deeply their scriptures are rooted in creation theology, covenant election, and Israel's history. Nothing here diminishes faith. Everything here strengthens its foundation. The bridge built from Scripture itself. This is not a book of debate. It is a book of alignment. The bridge between Jewish and Christian understanding is not built by compromise, however, by shared attention to the Scripture, especially at the beginning. When Genesis is read carefully, much of the distance between the communities is no longer as wide as it seems. So how to read this book? This book is meant to reveal the established context. Each section built on the previous one. Conclusions are not rushed. Patterns are allowed to repeat. Scripture is given space to interpret itself. The goal is not agreement at every point. The goal is clarity, continuity, and honesty with the text. It is time, in a time when identity is confused, authority is contested, and humanity itself is being redefined. The Bible's opening chapters are no longer optional reading. They are essential. If we want to understand who we are, what we are called to be, and where history is actually moving, we must return to the beginning. This book is offered in that spirit. The whole story must be read because context matters, cover to cover. I'm hoping that, talking with John, that we can get some of these and have them, by the time Passover comes. It's an easy read, friends. Huh?
The only way you do, they're not gonna just give it in a Kindle form when you go on Amazon.
They're working on that.
Huh?
They're working on it. John says they're working on it. That and audio.
Yeah. But you can't get the book now.
No.
No, you can't.
I went on this morning before I came over here, and it's still not available.
Oh, okay.
It's not listed. So John and them are probably working on it. Now you've got it?
It shows it on here.
Oh, okay.
It's $12.50.
Huh?
It's $12.50.
it's a good beginning. If you have, you know, family members, friends, acquaintances, and if you ask them, do you like to read?
Most of, yeah.
And even if you don't like to read,
I know, you know, when I first started, the first thing I was told is go to Genesis and start reading, and read it all the way through, and that's what I did, but it took me 5 years before I really got started around that about 4 years, before I understood what I was doing. Because then I got to the point where I ignored the New Testament and just
Right.
stayed in the Old Testament for up to time in the prisons, really.
and what John is bringing out is the very same thing that's been said to me throughout the whole time when I've gone out and spoke to people. So, well, you're just
Doing the Old.
yeah, doing the Old Testament. I remember doing this in the prisons when
Yeah,
we go out to the prisons.
But see, they were eager to do that because they had never had it. So
Right.
It was.
So what I do now, this is a newer Bible. I got this in '98. But in my 1960 Bible that I had around, and I still have it, I would take it and I go, okay, can anybody see any dark line or darkness in there on my pages? All right, I would open it up. Well, because I had this stuff there. Usually it opens up to Matthew. From Matthew on. I'm not neglecting, the newer text. I'm not neglecting that.
So I was always wondering why in the beginning, we had in the beginning, and then they said read John, and I thought, why not read John? It says in the beginning.
In the beginning, yeah.
And that's really, to me, that's where it started,
Yeah.
was in the beginning. They read that,
So if you want to take a look at this, I've got it up here. I'll take my notes out of it, so you don't get confused. Any other thoughts? Anything that question or that you want to bring up as we're coming to our close?
Hallelujah.
Huh?
That's good.
So we made it
That's
through.
to our brother
One
here.
question.
That's our brother here, got that going. Thank you very much.
Yes, appreciate it. All right. So let's prepare our hearts to.
Receive the blessing.
All right.